Have you ever been scrolling through your feed and wondered if that online guru you follow, the one who seems to have all the answers, is actually the real deal? Well, today we're going to dive into the story of @SocialMom, an Instagram star whose perfect image completely shattered, and it reveals something that honestly affects every single one of us. I mean, really think about it for a second. When you see an expert online, what is it that makes you trust them? Is it how many followers they have? The professional way they speak? The @SocialMom case forces us to look right at that question. And the answer, well, it's pretty uncomfortable.
All right, let's get into it. We're going to explore the absolutely fascinating case of a woman named Kagla Duvenchi Sanmez. Online, she was way better known as @SocialMom, a super trusted voice for a huge audience in the world of parenting and child development.
So, first up, how did she do it? How did @SocialMom build this massive, trusting following? Let's break down the exact strategy that turned her into a go-to Instagram expert. It really all starts with this number, 190,000. And that's not just a follower count, right? That's a digital army of people who saw her as a genuine authority. In the social media world, a number that big practically screams expert.
And here is the absolute foundation of that authority. Her bio, the very first thing anyone would see on her page, made a very, very specific professional claim. She wasn't just a mom giving tips. She was a psychologist, sociologist, a credentialed expert. Or so it seemed.
But @SocialMom wasn't just some influencer posting advice. She was a savvy entrepreneur. Let's take a look at how she turned all that online fame into a really lucrative business.
Yeah, this went way beyond brand deals and sponsored posts. @SocialMom was offering one-on-one therapy sessions, and she was charging professional rates for them. This wasn't just influencing anymore. This was a full-blown clinical practice built right on top of a social media platform.
And her empire just kept growing. She was literally everywhere. She was giving seminars on parenting, delivering keynote speeches at actual university hospitals, she was endorsing products for huge brands, and she was a regular guest on TV. She had woven herself into the very fabric of the parenting community as a trusted expert figure.
But then, the story starts to change. That carefully polished image of the expert begins to show some cracks, and it all started from inside her own community.
You know, this whole thing wasn't uncovered by a journalist or a rival influencer. Nope, it was a handful of her own followers who just got a little skeptical. They started asking some questions, and what they dug up would bring her entire empire crashing down.
And here it is, the bombshell. After they reached out to her university, the school confirmed that yes, she did have a degree, a bachelor's in sociology, but psychology, not a trace. The core of her expert persona, the very foundation of her business, was built on a lie.
As you can probably guess, once this information got out, the fallout was fast and furious. But her reaction to being exposed was maybe the most revealing part of this whole saga. So instead of addressing the facts, Sanmez went on the attack. She posted on Instagram, questioning the mental health of anyone who would dare to ask about her diploma. She declared it was nobody's business, and finished with, "There is nothing for me to prove."
But while her words were all fire and defiance, her actions told a very different story. The psychologist, sociologist in her bio, it quietly disappeared, and in its place was the much more accurate blogger mom. Of course, the professional community had something to say too. The Turkish Psychologists Association put out a statement calling what she did a serious problem, especially when dealing with something as sensitive as child psychology. And then they dropped the hammer. They said that invoicing for those kinds of services without a license could actually be a criminal activity.
Look, the @SocialMom story is way more than just some online drama. It's a huge cautionary tale for the digital world we all live in. So let's unpack the bigger lessons here, because this really does affect all of us.
There's actually a term for this phenomenon. Researchers call it influence impressions. It's that process where our brains decide someone is credible not because of their actual qualifications, but because of social media stuff. You know, we see 190,000 followers, a slick-looking feed, and we automatically think, wow, this person must know what they're talking about. So, how do you protect yourself? How do you spot the next @SocialMom before you get sucked in? Well, here's a super simple 3-question checklist. First, what are their verifiable credentials? Can you actually check them? Second, is there a conflict of interest? Are they selling the thing they're recommending? And third, what do actual professional organizations have to say?
In the end, the @social mom case was cracked by her own followers. But what about the next one? In this age of influence, it leaves you with this one big, lingering question. Are we the audience, the only real watchdogs we can count on?